My name is Dea Kopchenko-Trop, and this is my autobiography of a pre-service English Language Arts teacher, ELA teacher, for my EDCI 747 project with the University of Victoria. So, when we began this class, we located ourselves as ELA reading teachers by doing an inventory of who we are as readers. We looked at what we do and what we do not read, and what implications this holds for our teaching. Our reading for the class was Peggy Silva's article, Can We Read Today or Do We Have to Do English? It explains how she did something similar in her 9th grade English class, and this Silva article has been my favorite from the course thus far. It was interesting, concise, and relevant, and it had a humor that I enjoyed, and the kinesthetic community building involved in the activity of writing your favorite or least favorite books on a sticky note, amassing a large collection on the wall, and then talking about them with your classmates. It was right up my pedagogical alley. So socio-constructivist pedagogy in the ELA classroom is a bit too heavy of a topic for me. But I also wanted to start this autobiography off by acknowledging the genres that I too often fall into. In addition to my love of fantasy, dystopian young adult literature, and the chart toppers from the must-read lists, I deeply value the classics. This is why my first artifact text isn't a classic. It is Marjane Satrapi's graphic autobiography, Persepolis. Persepolis shifted the way I think about reading graphic novels because, as I said, I typically place immense value on what I personally deem the classics. I cherish the Odyssey, and I find value in Shakespeare. I love understanding references in pop culture. So personally, I feel the most educated when I can have a conversation about books like 1984 or Animal Farm, about Mrs. Dalloway or Lord Jim, because those are all titles and themes which so many people recognize and have some kind of knowledge about. I would never want to be excluded from history in that way. While I will absolutely still teach The Outsiders in a grade 9 or grade 10 English class, being introduced to a graphic novel format which I can still consider academic, interesting, and grade appropriate was hugely impactful on my teaching philosophies. So, Marjane Satrapi wrote Persepolis about her childhood during the strained political climate of 1980s Iran. After the Islamic Revolution, Marjane found herself veiled, separated from her friends, and lost in a turbulent transition from rule under the Shah to democracy under the West to rule under an Iraqi regime. She stated that she wrote it as a way to combat the negative stigma that surrounds Iran, and that she wants people to think critically instead of merely believing what the media tells them about her country, her childhood, and her homeland. This idea is also brought up within the book, and it was the very first thing I thought of when I thought of using this book within the new BC curriculum. When I look at the big ideas for grade 9 students, I see that Persepolis could be an entry point to get students questioning how what we hear, what we read, and what we view contributes to our ability to be educated and engaged citizens. Also speaking about the grade 9 big ideas, I believe that Persepolis' graphic format provides an example of language and story being a source of creativity and potentially, for some students, even joy. It is also a story which helps Canadian students learn and make connections about others in the world and how people understand text differently depending on their worldviews and their perspectives. Because while Margie cherishes symbols from the rock and roll West and we see them as just the norm, other Iranians at their time viewed the same objects, like posters, a Michael Jackson button, and a leather jacket, as dangerous and sometimes even hedonistic. So Persepolis could be used in many disciplines, all the way up to English Studies 12. The discussion questions associated with the novel and the time span that it's explored in would be adapted to suit the grade, but my imagining of a Persepolis unit could easily meet big ideas and learning outcomes from multiple grade levels and reading levels. At the grade 12 level, for example, Persepolis would be a contribution to the exploration of texts from a variety of sources, and in multiple modes, that reflect diverse worldviews because it's a graphic novel which is depicting Iran in a very different society than we see here in modern Canada. It might also help deepen students' understanding of themselves and others in a changing world because of how it depicts Margie's struggles with religion, the restrictions of the lower social classes, growing up, and revolution. These can all give students insight into the diverse factors that shape someone's identity. Furthermore, as we discussed in class, realizing that we each apply a lens to the literature we read and bring experience to the text with us and that we need to promote a reconception of adolescence as a cultural or social construct are significant realizations that we need to remember to consider as English language arts teachers. While Margie's story follows the rebellion trope associated with adolescence, by skipping school, smoking a cigarette, and listening to music that wasn't deemed appropriate, it also challenges some typical ideas of adolescence. She does not rebel against her parents. She does not focus on a sappy teenage love story like so many young adult novels do. The broad comparison between adolescence with a TS and adolescence with a CE in Patron's Youth Lens article also makes me think of how, when readers draw on personal experiences in relation to texts, text can come to life. We discussed the term aesthetic stance in relation to this terminology. So the efferent stance is when a reader reads to derive information, and the aesthetic stance is when a reader wants to engage personally with a text, like in novel or fiction, something that you're passionately drawn to. Additionally, a situation can be both aesthetic and efferent at the same time. This can sometimes happen when a reader gives a text meaning and a text gives the reader something like meaning. So I think Persepolis can give people another perspective on crises in the Middle East, a new outlook on graphic novels like it did for myself, and perhaps open their eyes to a little bit more about themselves. So all in all, I think that it's a very adaptable book, which I would happily teach in a high school English or even English language development classroom, because a lot of new ELD classrooms are incorporating graphic novel formats in order to show the visual as well as written sides of English and storytelling. So my second artifact text is Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest. I first read The